Are we recording? We are recording.
We are recording.
Good. Little red lights on, that means recording, yes?
Yep.
Welcome to The Purple Fringe, the podcast where we talk about the high end of the low end digital media production equipment.
G'day, Chris. Welcome to another episode.
We're back at The Purple Fringe here with a very exciting episode for you today.
Yep, The Purple Fringe, the show where we discuss the high end of low end technology. But today's maybe a little bit different because we're chatting about the NAB show and there's a bit of the high end of high end technology mixed in.
Yeah, so this is like Christmas for us. I think last week we discussed a fair bit of what we would like to see at NAB, and NAB is basically the National Association of Broadcasters event. It's been going since the 20s, so we're talking almost 100 years worth of trade show of announcing products and basically revealing to the world what's coming. It's for the big players, it's for the Sonys, it's for the Panasonics, it was for the Ikegamis, the Grass Valleys, all the big guys, the Thompson, all the big people in the day. But more recently, there's been a lot more smaller players join the show. And I guess it was a place for the innovators to actually showcase their products.
Yeah, in fact, a few notables. Red showcased their first camera there, which was at the time a massive announcement showing off that sort of technology at that sort of price. And we've also had something pretty important, HD TV. So
that was premiered at NAB and kind of announced and shown. So there's a lot of relevance to the sort of first that happened, and the things where we take for granted now were first put on show there. So yeah, it's quite a significant show, and over the years, it's always fun in the lead up because there's all sorts of rumours and it gets quite fun. Yeah,
in fact, the last couple of years, a lot of stuff's actually come out before the show. I think manufacturers have been trying to get the jump on one another and releasing stuff earlier and earlier. Now, some manufacturers release things months in advance this year, but it's been interesting in the last week or so. Normally there's been a lot of leaking information coming out, but not so much this year.
No, and in a way it's a little bit like Christmas for a privileged little kid. They're going to know what they're going to be getting for Christmas roughly. They're going to know roughly what their siblings are getting for Christmas.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like that for NAB as well. We usually know what's coming. And you can usually sort of see what's coming for our, counterparts in the various broadcast industries and radio industries. But this year's been a little bit quieter than normal. And maybe that the brands are all deciding to have that spirit of NAB again. But I don't think so. I think they've just got nothing to show.
So, as we were chatting about a little earlier, Chris, I think one of the theses from one of the articles I read was we have this constant march of technology and it costs a lot of money, and the problem is there isn't that much money relative to what there was many years ago. And the idea is potentially that some of these companies are going, geez, we can't just keep releasing a new product, a massive new product year after year, and there's got to be a breaking point because they're trying to release this new technology, 4K, 8K, HDR, all this stuff, and they're trying to do it cheaper every year, and it's just getting to the point where you wonder how long can they keep on doing this?
Well, and if you look at something like the original PD150 and 170 range, I mean, those cameras stuck it out for almost 10 years, and they're like 8 years, 7 years at least, and now we're talking of cameras that are only having a shelf life of a year, 2 years before they're redundant with another model that's come out, like with, better specs, heavily different specs. So I think we have had a bit of a quantum leap in the last sort of 10 years, and now is actually the time where things are slowly going 4K-ish, but that's really all that's sort of happening. But I will give it to JVC. They've jumped on the board, and they have actually announced new cameras for our category that we discuss, of course, the high end of low end.
Yeah, so these cameras are not anything amazing. They just look like a
good workhorse,
mature video camera that's going to give you the addition of streaming. So a news camera, an ENG camera.
Yeah, and so you could, if you wanted to have a on-the-spot coverage going out as well, you could do that with this camera.
Yeah, so a lot of the time with these live streaming solutions, you have to have a whole lot of extra stuff strapped to your camera. You're running out of HDMI or SDI or whatever it may be into some other box that's then encoding it and then spitting it out to whatever service it is that you're using. Whereas this camera, it's all in the camera itself, and you don't have to bolt on a bunch of extras.
And that's really handy. I mean, even for doing something like a music event, like at the moment, I'm in the process of returning a whole load of people's videos from a music festival where we just had the camera running at the back with the desk feed and a few things. And we streamed it as well on at the time. But that streaming setup was, a box with a HDMI cable in that went into a USB 3, which went into a laptop that had to be powered. That, it was just, had OBS, had the software on it running. And it was just a pain in the butt. And if to be able to just take a camera, turn it on, tether it to a phone or a network connection and go, that's,
it's massively advantageous.
Yeah, and it's been around for a while, but not necessarily direct from a camera in our sort of category.
And when it has been, it's been a bit flaky, and we don't know what this JVC solution is like yet, but it looks like they've put it as one of the hero features, so hopefully they've done a decent job of it. Some of the inbuilt streaming services in the past have been pretty flaky to the point where not only wouldn't you use it for a big job, you wouldn't even use it for a muck around a lot of the time because they're just too unreliable.
Where I've got a feeling JVC looked like they put a lot of research into this. Now, we don't have a model number as yet. We just know that they're releasing 2 new Pro HD cameras. So they will have a model number. That's something to look out for at NAB. Interestingly, they've got a little thing on it, which I actually when I stop and think about it, I actually quite like the sound of, which is it has a 3.5mm jack to go from your wireless mic kit. So rather than have massive XLRs hanging out the side, you can just plug your little, your little jack in from your output into the little 3.5 straight across. It's not a long cable. It's only a few centimetres. So you're not going to lose any quality there. And the good thing about that is then you can have switches to flick across instantly to a second set of mics. So if you've got a shotgun mic or a presenter microphone running, from a cable or even a desk feed or something like that, you can very quickly flip between the two. Now, ideally, in an amazing world where JVC is thinking about its customers, it would give you 4-channel audio recording. And JVC have been quite good at doing that. And that would be a godsend. Like, to have 4-channel audio recording in camera is really good. We've spoken about it before, but the ability to have, for instance, 2 lapel mics on people, have an audience mic or have a roaming mic as well running into a camera is just really a nuts and bolts setup for having, capturing a corporate event or something like that.
Yeah, basically an onboard mixer.
Yeah, even a wedding, you can mic 3 people. You can, take the feed from the celebrant and put a mic on a groom, and then you could hide a mic somewhere else as well. It gives you the options.
Stick one on the gooseneck that's on the lectern in front.
Yeah, that's it as a backup, and so it just gives you more options. So it's quite exciting. Fingers crossed, this new JVC camera, and we're giving them a bit of credit because they're the only people that have really announced something that's in our category.
Yeah.
As far as cameras are concerned. But if we are talking about mics as well, then Audio-Technica have also come out with a new range of mics. And this is quite exciting because they're trying to compete in the market with Sennheiser and Rode and Sony, and they've priced accordingly. That's their System 10, their new System 10 mics, which could be quite good.
So are these corded mics, or are they wireless mics? Or what
they're a combination. There's a on-board, like a shotgun mic, sort of like the little Rode
video mic,
the Video mic or the Video Pro. But it's a stereo mono switchable. So you can switch it between being a nice wide image field. It has 3 mics in it. It has like the left and right poking out the side, and it also has a sort of more shotgun. So you can choose between...
What do you think of those sorts of mics, Chris? I'm curious.
Depends how good your onboard mic is to begin with. One thing it does have... I honestly don't think it adds that much. If you're
I personally think they suck, but I sound harsh, I know, but I've used many of these mics and I'm not convinced they are the solution a lot of the time. I could see a scenario, if we're sitting in a room like we are today and I had the camera at the distance I'm sitting from you, I could totally see it working.
But it's not. I think that people they use it for the wrong thing. It's not. It's not for getting an interview. It's for getting a atmospheric sound.
Yeah.
And for picking up Atmos, one thing it has is a high SPL mode. So if you're somewhere which is loud and is likely to have a lot going on, you can flick it across to an SPL mode that's really muted, so that you can not get distorted audio at a concert or something like that.
Yeah.
It has it's on paper, it looks like it's quite good with its rating.
Yeah, no, you raise a good point. I think people think that this is a mic, you whack it on top of your camera and you go and do a bunch of interviews, and it's not.
No. I mean,
it really isn't.
We're sitting, 20 centimetres each in front of a 416 and a Rode equivalent NTG2, and it's sounding nice and clean, but that's the kind of,
we hope it is.
Yeah, well, yeah, we hope, but really, once you go more than a meter away from someone on a long microphone like these are sort of your 1 foot long mic kind of operations. You're talking about something that's 10 centimeters. It's really not gonna have the pickup. It's gonna have like a 20-degree.
The pickup pattern's just not going to cut it.
So these little on top of camera mics are really there for getting you.
I've also just found they tend to pick up a lot of stuff. As soon as you put a stabilized lens on the camera, all you hear is the of the stabilized lens and any handling noise on the camera itself. So I'm sure for a particular scenario that'd be fantastic, but maybe it's just, as you say, Chris, a usage problem rather than a product problem.
I think they need to go back to my original design from 2001, which is a microphone hat. So you actually wear a hat with a microphone on.
Is that like the Homer Simpson thing where he walks in the Quickie Mart with a camera in the hat and then gets stomped on? Yeah, all right.
No, the microphone hat's a great idea. I built one at uni, and I used to go to the big day out with a mini disc in my pocket and
bootlegs.
Record all kind of bootlegs. It was pretty good fun actually. Except when you jumped around with a mini disc, it would skip. And I discovered that I did it one year, and I had very fragmented recordings of Fatboy Slim and Chemical Brothers. But all the same, it was worth a try. But there's the Audio Technica. It's got the onboard camera mic there announced. They've also announced a series of wireless mics as well. So this includes a handheld mic, a new lapel mic pack for clipping on, and a receiver. And we're looking at $370 US kind of price for a pack for a system. So that's cheaper than the Sennheiser, probably by about 30%. 40%, and cheaper than the Rode, or roughly on the same price as a Rode, maybe.
Once it converts to our money, I'd say it's about the same.
That same price as a Rode.
A little bit pricier.
But they also have a handheld mic with a built-in transmitter, and you can flip between the two and things like that. And it has, it uses automatic frequency selection, but whether that's on 2.4 gig, we don't know.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, that's my spiel on the JVC camera and the Audio Technica mics that are coming out. And thank you, both those companies, for actually announcing something, because, as you said, we're in a bit of limbo for some of the other mid-range gear that's out there.
Well, look, there was one other announcement. It's not a big announcement, but it's something that you, Chris, could be interested in, because you love this camera, and that's the Sony RX10.
Yeah.
You bought the 2 and you're very happy with it. Sony have gone and done a version 3 already, which is interesting because the 2's only been out for a pretty short period of time. But much like they've done with the RX100, their little pocketable cameras, they've kept the so-called old one around, the version 2, and sort of positioned it at a different point in the market. So they've got this new version 3. It's basically the same body, but it's also got a fixed lens. But the lens is, I forget the wide point, Chris. You might have it in front of you, but it's 600 at the long.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy lens, and it's still reasonably fast as well. So this looks like the ultimate travel zoom camera, if nothing else. But potentially also useful for sporting events, especially if you want to record some video or get some stills there. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I mean, I've had a relatively good run with it. I mean, its stills aren't the best thing in the world. They're a little bit blotchy, but it's still a nice image that you get off it.
Yeah, in good light, they're fine. It's just when you get down to the low light, they just start to struggle
a little bit. But yeah, I've had a good run with it. For video, it's certainly it's just a piece of glass on the front of it. My only thing would be, in extending the range to 600, I just hope they've kept the clarity and the razor pin sharp imagery that you get on the wide end, because that's especially if you push it into 20% of its range and you just use that portrait or just below portrait range, it's beautiful. So fingers crossed. It's a good throw around camera for something cheap. As I say, I've got it as my second camera.
Only thing is, I'm not sure this one's cheap now. It's still very new, so the pricing might be off, but the retailers in Australia I've spoken to, at least, are talking $2,500.
Yeah.
Now, that's a lot of money for what is essentially a big point and shoot with a fixed lens. Like, you can buy a professional SLR for that money, obviously not with the lens.
That's the thing. But, how much is a 600mm lens going to cost you, John?
Well, you get either the Sigma or the Tamron, 150 to 600. You can get one of those for about $1,200.
Then you're going to put on something with a bigger sensor, and so you're going to need a doubler or something.
Yeah. No, look, you could buy an 80D and a 150 to 600 lens, and it would be more expensive by a little bit, but it would be a better kit for taking photos. But, that's maybe not what you're looking to do. So there are always tools for the job, and this is definitely a very interesting tool for a particular job. Probably not so much for you, Chris, because you're not shooting that sort of video. You're not going out and shooting wildlife. At least you haven't told me any time lately that you have been. But
shooting dogs next week. But that's
really?
We're using FS7 for all of that. So
right, okay, shooting dogs. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
Yeah, we talked about the movie a few weeks ago, which was a little device that you bang on top of something at the back of a room, and
or at the front of the room,
or at the front of the room. But the idea was that it would give you the ability to have your mobile phone and touch the shot you wanted, and it would recrop the 4K video into just that part of the image, and would allow you to vision switch from one.
It was an all-in-one video camera and vision switcher with your mobile device. And streamer, I think, as well. But we thought it was interesting. Chris was not that impressed with it. I wasn't that impressed either. I think that was very much a niche device that looks good in glossy brochures. This is kind of the same thing. Tell us a bit about what you know, Chris.
This is the high end. We're waiting for something that comes out in the middle.
It's the high end of the low end technology.
So this is Data Video, who have been around for years.
And actually, by the way, make some really great products. I've got some SDI to HDMI to everything converters, and they're solid, they're robust, and they just do the job. Yeah.
Data Video stuff has always just worked. It's blue, you plug it in, and it's great. It might not be blue anymore. It always used to be blue.
Okay.
Like, all the boxes were blue. It was cool.
Mine's grey, but all right.
I think they changed that. But it was, I love my Data Video stuff too. But this is basically, you can put up to two 4K cameras into it. And then you can switch up to 8 angles from those 2 cameras, and it will reframe it, and it will output it at 1080p or 720p. It's a standards converter as well, as far as I know.
Yeah, it's a little bit like a lot of security camera setups where you basically have an image and you often choose regions that you're more interested in, except unlike a security camera where you're trying to detect motion or whatever it is, you're actually using that as a frame, an HD frame, to output to wherever you're outputting it. So
it's a good little unit to, and I would say that this would be quite usable if you had a conference or something like that with 3 people sitting down at a table and you were streaming it and you just wanted to have the 4K.
Yeah. I think this would be good as a built-in sort of solution. It's not something that I'd necessarily take with me all the time. Like, you could, but I could see it actually being useful in a conference room where you often need to do this sort of switching. Yeah. It's nothing fancy. It's just like a utility that is in there.
Now, if it was an all-in-one unit that also output, that switched, I would be the first person to recommend it. Unfortunately, it requires an additional vision switcher. It just spits out the streams. So, sorry, I said before you could switch. It can't actually do that internally. What it does is you input your 4K, then it spits out up to 8 regioned images from 2 cameras. So it will get you your source material. And it will allow you to keep recording that 4K with another device plugged into it. Again, it doesn't have a recorder built into it. Yeah. So it really is just it's a split box.
And it's a live device. There's no point doing this for stuff you're going to edit later, because you could just record it with a video camera at 4K and do exactly the same thing in post and have far more control and the undo button. Yeah.
So... Look, I mean, this is interesting. What we really want is something that's in between the Movi, which is really super cheap, and we want a little box that sits on top of a 4K camera, like an X150 or even an FS7 or something that's nice and sharp, where you can get a nice prime and you can just go sharp on the image, and then you can just sit and tap on your phone or on your tablet, the angles, and have a little bit of audio management as well, but just in a little box that sits on top of the camera. If someone could release that could do 4 angles or even 6 angles or whatever, that would just from one camera, that'd be great. Yeah. We're still waiting for that box. Maybe at NAB. Maybe someone will announce it.
And next year we'll get the 8K version.
Absolutely. Maybe Blackmagic. We'll talk about them a bit later.
Maybe. So what's next on the list there, Chris?
Well, Small HD. Did you see their monitors at all?
I did see a little bit. You'll have to inform me, though. I'm familiar with the company. They make some nice field monitors. Good quality, reasonably good price as well. What have they announced?
Well, interestingly, their name's Small HD.
Because they used to originally they were small.
little screens that went on top of your camera to give you a proper HD preview.
Atomos, those sorts of things are similar.
Yeah, and they were the right price point, and they were the right form factor for mounting on a camera. And they were bright, and that's something that's really important when you're shooting outdoors, having a nice bright, and they came with sun shields and things like that as well. They are now releasing some not-so-small monitors, some 17, 24, and 32-inch monitors. Now, the 32-inch monitor in particular, which is pretty big.
It's pretty big for a field monitor.
The kind of monitor that you have your agency sitting around or people like on set who need to see an image and you've got to deliver them an image. Its biggest selling point is that it's a 1500 nit panel. Now, nits is your brightness value, and it's sort of measured per square inch, I think, of average output, rather than or average output per size of the screen. So it is actually relative brightness to its size. And, it's got a handle on top of it, runs on 12-volt power. It's got mounting options galore for like mounting it nicely in a case. It's super rugged. It's got lookup tables built into it. So if you're shooting S-Log, you can choose a preset.
You can make the clients happy.
You can make the clients happy, give them something bright and colourful. If they go, oh, we need a bit more colour in it, you can change that on the monitor, not in the camera.
Yeah.
It does HDR previewing as well, so you can shoot, and you can also LUT that, so you can shoot with HDR but then crush it in the LUT. The lookup table being the ability to take your super flat grey image and pop it into a super colourful contrast image. So this
You're
monitor,
taking numbers and remapping them to other numbers.
basically.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I haven't seen something. Well, I mean, there is options from Sony and Panasonic and JVC and even Barco, I think, have got something on the high end. But they are tens of thousands of dollars still for this kind of screen.
Do you have pricing for this one?
As far as I know, it's around $3,000, $3,500.
Sounds pretty cheap.
It's not as cheap as, say, a straight Blackmagic one, but they're known as not to be that good. They're reflective. So this.
Also, their HD ones at least are quite cold.
Yeah,
and you can't change it.
And it's fine if you just want to have a monitor to see how your picture's going in a studio environment, really. But on set, this is a great looking screen. And as I say, I think it's around $4,000, $5,000 for at least one of the models and the range. It might go up a little bit more to the 32. That's US, but I'm pretty impressed with the look of this. The fact it has a handle and it's just big and chunky and you can run it on, various power options is impressive.
Cool.
So there we go. New screen, hopefully being announced. Again, all this stuff is going to be confirmed on the weekend.
Yes. All right. Anything else on your list there, Chris?
I got a big list. How about you go? What have you got?
I don't have anything. I don't have anything in front of me.
Well, how about I hand you the list? You can have a flip through.
Thanks, Chris.
You did do some of this research too.
I did indeed.
And I'll arm myself with a beer.
All right. Now, this is something you put on the list, but it's something I like to talk about for whatever reason, tripods, which to most people I think are pretty boring, but I think tripods can be very interesting. The Compass 23. New announcement from Miller, designed to handle a variety of setups, the standard sort of marketing spiel. To be honest, I don't care about this particular model too much, Chris, but what are your thoughts on the status of tripods lately?
Well, I think a tripod honestly hasn't really changed as far as its concept in the last 14 years. Or I guess there's more that's
carbon fibre, I guess, would be a more recent development.
Yeah, well, no, they've been around for a while as well, but I guess coming down in price for the carbon fibre legs has been a big thing because it does make a big difference. And it's those things at a professional level where you get a $8,000 or $9,000 tripod and go, ooh, that they're bringing into the lower end market, which is nice. Especially because you don't need to take a camera that's so heavy these days. Cameras tend to be slightly lighter, and that just means that you're getting more options. And a lot of the time, those tripods for the prosumer range, I guess we'd call it, that we talk about, lacked some of the spring control options and the tension controls, and they're adding those back in. Even though people say, oh, you don't really need them at this level. You kind of do, and they add that professional touch of easily being able to do ramp ups and slow downs on the end of pans and all of that stuff that sort of adds to your professional touch. So
what's your favourite brand when it comes to tripods these days?
Oh, look, I've had a really good run with Millers. I use Manfrotto's myself because of the price, but when I hire stuff... Oh, sorry, I should say that's what I own. Yeah. But Millers, when I've hired, have been nice, and the Schatzler, I can never
Satchler.
I can never pronounce their name. Shatchler. Those dudes are
Apart from their entry level one, which is made of plastic and is crap, but yeah,
their higher end ones that
beautiful.
are worth a little bit more money are really nice, and they just fluidly cruise through shots, and they're really nice to work with. What have you got? You're a Vinton fan, aren't you?
Oh yeah, one of my tripods is a Vinton, and I'm very happy with it. Vinton unfortunately seemed to, at the lower end at least, not be so big in Australia. So unfortunately, I tried to buy some more of those tripods the other day, and I couldn't get anyone that would actually sell me one. I think they're big in the US. Their high-end stuff especially, I think, is used for a lot for US baseball and stuff. I'm sure someone can correct me from the US on that. But yeah, look, Vinton, I think it's sort of up there with Satchler for a lot of their high-end gear. They make very nice tripods. Miller, I want to love more than I do.
I think their controls are a little small sometimes.
Yeah, their heads, I find, you don't have the control that I'd like. I want to love them because they're an Aussie company. They do a lot of things really well. I like their legs. I think they do really nice legs. It's just their heads are something about them. I'm
the
not
lower
convinced.
end, the higher end heads are quite nice.
Yeah. Look, I've only used one or two of their higher end heads, admittedly, but their lower end ones, I'm just not convinced on. I think there's other options out there. Manfrotto, look, they're very popular. They're easy to get parts for. They're a little heavy most of the time, like excessively so. That I think they could make them a bit lighter. They're often very chunky, which I think looks good, but maybe is a little bit overkill sometimes. And sometimes I really am annoyed by like their 502 head, which is a good budget head, like $300 or whatever it is. The brake is on the wrong side. Like seriously, for most people who are right-handed, put the brake on the left-hand side. I think it's obviously done so they can upsell you to the higher end heads, because why else would you put it backwards? It's just ridiculous. So, look, I work with a heap of those heads, and things like that annoy me where they've obviously just done it to bloody upsell you to the 504 or something like that.
Yeah, or the 509. They're a bit more pricey. I mean, the best thing you can spend on a tripod is good legs, because your head you can replace if you get a nice 100mm bowl sort of setup, or even a 75. I mean, the carbon fiber legs I bought for I think $1,400, $1,500. That's a lot of money for some poles. But gee, they're good poles.
Yeah, indeed.
And I think that's the good thing about Manfrotto is they offer some really nice modular setups. I mean, that's the thing with pro tripods. I mean, you can upgrade them and change them around, and you've got your head and you've got your legs, and then you've got monopods as well.
Even bags, like it might sound like nothing, but
shop bags.
No, just bags for tripods. There is something about getting into the higher end bags for tripods where they're properly balanced and you pick them up and they don't try and flip themselves over. It just, I know it sounds, I'm all about the detail. Like my Vinton bag, I pick it up and it's perfectly level. I pick up some of the bloody Manfrotto bags and they try and flip themselves over. So, yeah.
And you can't carry more than one at once. So that's the thing. For you to be able to actually carry stuff into a place like successfully without tripping over yourself. Yeah, I understand that. That's really funny. Their
bags are terrible. So Manfrotto, you should look at that. Next up on the list, we've got some stuff from Boris Effects. Those who are not familiar with Boris, they've been around for, I don't know, a long time. I've been familiar with them for at least a decade and a half. They do a lot of plugins for fancy effects and amongst other things, but they've announced some technology to do with my pet peeve at the moment, because everyone's into it, and that's immersive or 360-degree video. Thoughts on this, Chris?
The main thing with 360 is that you've got the two edges of the frame that meet.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it's either your lens distortion that's slightly out, or
your exposure or motion blur.
There's a whole load of things. Yeah. So it's really about addressing that crossover and cleverly addressing the warping the pixels and changing their values so that they meet in the middle and they do a nice crossover.
Yep.
A lot of that can be fixed, especially the exposure side, can be fixed in software. And I think, software that cleverly stitches and is able to analyze the sides of the images and ramp down, not change the whole image, but actually like ramp it down on the sides and ramp it up on the other camera, especially if you're shooting into sunlight and you're picking up the flare and you're trying to, make it so it looks like a bit more of a seamless 360-degree experience. It's they need to be intelligent. As far as I can tell, these plugins are not that dissimilar to the straight normal plugins. I mean,
Yeah. Look, there's lots of software out there to do this because it is such a hot thing at the moment. I'm using AutoPano Video and AutoPano Giga quite a lot lately, developed by a French company who have been bought out by GoPro. I'm still a bit frustrated at the quality. I just feel like it should be better than it is. There's always some sort of parallax issue with all of these pieces of stitching software, and I don't know, it just seems like it should be better. I'm glad Boris is doing some work in this area. When you put this story in there, Chris, I actually had this thought that I might have actually had something to do with this. I'll talk to you offline about what that actually means.
wow.
And I'm not kidding. But yeah, look, anything that can improve the situation, I think, is a good thing, because there are so many people interested in this area right now, and I'm still not convinced. In fact, the Super Meet, which is a meetup of people interested in this industry, which happens alongside the NAB show, is happening, and the agenda for that at the moment is half immersive video. So obviously there is a massive push in the industry and people in it, and maybe I'm just missing something, but I'm still not convinced.
Where's the decent cameras? Like, I mean, there's the entry level, and then there's the ridiculously pro high end.
Nokia device, which also isn't that amazing either. Yeah. So I'm hopeful that it will improve dramatically over the next year, but I'm not convinced that it will. And I'm really not convinced as to the use case scenario for this.
Neither am I.
People don't want to sit on their couch and have to twist their neck in a demon-like fashion to look in the opposite direction for immersive video.
They don't want to put 3D glasses on. I mean, if they're going to get virtual reality, and I've played a lot with VR.
Oculus and whatnot.
I've had all the dev kits and been using Unity and in that VR world for 4 years now. And the Vive as well, and the new Vive that just came out. We got one at work, and multiple people, devs I've used with. And it's the 360-degree video isn't what you run on them. I mean, I've watched 360-degree video just to see what it looked like, and I was like...
And most of it's shot by amateurs doing extreme sports, and it makes you...
giddy.
Yeah, it makes you motion sick.
And look, you're not shooting at a high enough frame rate. Already with the Vive, it's running at 90 hertz. I think it's 90 hertz or 75. I think it's running at 90, the new one. And that's 90 frames a second, and we're not shooting at those kind of frame rates. It's the second you start moving things around you. I mean, the best things is where it's an object and you're walking around it and looking at it, and that's not what 360 degree is. It's all about looking out. And look,
that's not how we're used to watching video.
No, it's got some use case scenarios. I could use it in training for forklift training stuff.
Yeah, firefighters, something like that.
If 3D video didn't pick up, I don't understand why 360...
Well, for video games, I think. Not for video, but for video games. I think that it's already been proven. I talked to a lot of people, and to me, maybe I'm just jaded and old, but a lot of people go, oh, this 360-degree game that I put the Oculus Rift on and played was amazing, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, okay, so maybe in 3D games, but even then, within the game, you've got 3D objects and other things moving. I mean, that's what's interesting. And when are you going to be running video textures?
Well, yeah.
That are 360, because you want them to be interactive and change and...
I think HoloLens is more interesting to me. Augmented reality, where you're overlaying stuff on the real world, that's far more interesting. And look, I heard this saying the other day, it looks like a toaster's having sex with your forehead when you wear one of these things. So apart from looking like a dick, they don't deliver the content that I think most people are interested in. Who really wants to sit on their couch and watch a 2-hour movie where they have to twist their neck 180 degrees or rearrange their living room and stand up and stare around for the most part? Not to mention the editing is very difficult, because as soon as you make a cut, you disorientate the viewer. You've got to deal with audio, and the audio's still got a long way to come. And you've got to be standing up in the middle of your living room for a couple of hours to watch a movie. I want to sit on the couch with a beer and relax.
And the thing is, even with virtual reality, especially the Vive, when you're walking around, because you can only obviously go so much travel, you point at things and you hit a button and it gets a circle and it does a transition to the new location you're at. That seems to be the best way of traveling they found. So you're there, I want to move there, want to move there.
So all those transitions I tell my students not to use are suddenly useful again.
Being really useful in 3D. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like when you cut, it's just like, whoa, and they
look around again and you're like, what just happened?
I think there's some nice artistic cases and there's some good content to make, but apart from a little
Virtual
bit of a gimmick.
tours and all that sort of thing.
I don't know. Let's move on from VR. I'm not a big fan of talking about it, especially when we can talk about batteries.
Oh, of course. So what's happening with batteries? Apart from Tesla building the Gigafactory, which is the world's biggest building by square foot, have you ordered your Model 3?
Yeah, no, not yet. No,
not yet. No, okay.
I'm waiting for them to release camera batteries. Okay. The Tesla battery.
Actually, that's an idea. That could be awesome. I think you should speak with Elon about that
he
one.
He might come to NAB.
Yeah, right.
Actually announce something.
So what batteries are you talking about?
I'm talking about the Anton Beer, new Cine batteries. For those of you who don't know Anton Beer, they are a third-party manufacturer of batteries. So where Sony have always released their V-Locks, which is the big chunky batteries you bang on the back of either a shoulder rig you've sort of made up yourself or on a broad, sort of the higher end, I suppose, or mid-end.
Or even some lights as well if you're on battery power.
Or if you've got, like, let's say, for instance, a Blackmagic cinema camera, you've got a set of wireless mics, you've got a light on that, you've got maybe a streaming box as well or something like that. Like, that's a pretty crazy combination. Well, let's just, for argument's sake, you were running this rig for a reason. You want to have batteries which have got a lot of power to power all of that stuff and have the ability to, especially with a light, you might not use it that much, but you might need to, like, for instance, get a wide shot where you need to crank your LEDs all the way to full brightness. And you might be drawing, a lot of power from your battery at that point. And there's a point where battery will just give up.
Yeah.
So in Anton Beer, I've got these new Cine batteries that will give you up to 12 amps of continuous power. And they run at 14 volts, which is sort of one of the standard power supply rails that we get for cameras, and you can step that up and down, obviously, with your own electronics. The greatest thing about them is they give you an accurate runtime. So you can see on the back of them, we have, 2 hours worth of power left if we are in this current configuration. And that will scale and actually go up and down that number depending on how much you've got turned on and what you're operating. So you might just have the camera sitting in standby mode and you've got 5 hours worth of time or 6 hours worth of time left. Turn on your light, turn on your mics and get everything running, and then it'll drop down to 2 hours. But it also has a percentage, or you can store profiles in it to actually look for your camera, which is just a little bit more of a smart battery, I guess. And they're a smaller form factor than the traditional V-Locks. The traditional V-Locks are quite tall. They're about 20 centimetres tall. These are about 10 centimetres tall, and they're a nice little cube, sort of, in-between battery. They really are a not too big, not too small, kind of right-sized looking battery. And they've got options to tap out power directly on the battery, because usually you have to split your power once you've actually got it on your V-Lock and have all these like little, custom cables and things. But you can actually plug straight into the battery and get a secondary power out of it. Little things like that sometimes make a difference. Yeah. And it's nice to see them, still going and still innovating.
Cool. The next thing I've got on our run-through, Chris, is some Canon video stuff. But before I get to that specifically, you talked earlier in the show about things you sort of know that you're going to see at NAB. They're rumours at this point, but you kind of just know. And one of those things that we just know about is 8K. And we just know about it because, hey, 4K is kind of boring now, so what's the next big thing? And also because we are starting from the likes of Red to see 8K actually shipping in cameras. So firstly, before we get to the products, Chris, what are your thoughts on 8K as both an acquisition format and also as a delivery format?
Not a delivery format. When we're shooting 4K, it's because we're reframing a lot of the time and downsampling for HD delivery. And it's really quite good for that and gives you some flexibility. Obviously, if you're starting to deliver in 4K,
we still don't really have a good standard for.
No, but we're starting to deliver some stuff in 4K, like series and Netflix and things in countries with fast enough internet.
Yep.
And, TV monitors, people who are sitting, close to a monitor watching this show are benefiting with their eyes, seeing 4K. You can see a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, I definitely can. If I sit in front of a 5K iMac, it's big difference.
Yeah, and swapping between something that's cropped, slightly pushed in, and white, like you can see soft, the difference between something that's been recropped and not cropped in 4K on a 4K monitor. It's not as big on as HD was, but you can actually tell. So I guess the argument for 8K or 6K just means you can have some reframing options and some stabilizing if you need to stabilize the image, because it crops it obviously and moves it, counter moves it to stabilize the image. So yeah, I think you've got a use case there for shooting 6 or 8K, only if you're delivering in 4K, and really only if people are going to be watching it at that kind of res.
Yeah, look, I think I agree. For acquisition, it's an interesting technology. It's not something I'd rush to, and it's not something I could afford to rush to, even if I wanted to. The interesting thing with 8K was that the Japanese, who have the Olympics in a few years, have it, not even this year, I think it was like a year and a half, if not 2 years ago, announced they were going to broadcast it in 8K. Now, that's just crazy. And if they pull it off, that's freaking amazing. We can't even broadcast 4K in this country, at least, let alone 8K. So if Japan manages to do that, that would be spectacular. But short of use cases like the Olympics, where it's pretty important to do the absolute best you can, it's really an acquisition format at best. And we're not even close to distributing 4K en masse, let alone distributing 8K. So the cameras themselves, Chris, any news there?
Well, the C500 recently dropped in price.
Right, that's the Canon.
The Canon C500, and that dropped quite significantly in price, which says they may be trying to run out some old stock. That's a 4K model that they...
Because they did the version 2 of the C100 and the C300,
yeah,
and they both jumped quite significantly in price relative to the version 1s, and they introduced some good new features, and it was the C500, which was always a sort of forgotten version of, probably because of the price, but always seemed forgotten in the C100, C300 lineup.
Yeah, I think at that point people were moving to Sonys and to the Reds and to the, there are other options that probably...
At that price point.
Well, I don't know. It's like if you're going to spend money on a camera, you go all out at a certain point. There's a certain point where you have $30,000, $40,000 budgets for shoots, and you get your kit accordingly. And I think...
Yeah, it's more a rental camera than an
and that's
camera.
where you get an RE or something that's, got that super reliable, ultra-engineered sort of
brick
side to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
With the C500 was always an amazing camera, but they're talking about this new one having quite good ISOs. We're talking like clean up to 6400 and above, which is normal these days for the new range of cameras. So it's probably a sensor upgrade. Someone asked Canon, what would you consider as a sensor? Are you going to make your own? And their response was, we will use whatever sensor on the market is considered the best.
Well, their new 80D is their own sensor, and that's getting good reviews. So
maybe they're
stepping up in their sensors lately, because they were losing to Sony a lot in the last year or two.
I don't know, 8K, what codec are you going to use? What's it going to use? We don't know enough information. Look, NAB is in 3 days' time. Let's hope we get some cool announcements. And this brings us, of course, to, there's two more little things. One is the GH5 from Panasonic.
Well, yes, the rumoured GH5.
The rumoured GH5. Again, this is all rumour, and none of these rumours have really been confirmed this year. This is the thing, you usually get a little bit more leak. They might be releasing a 6K camera. So what do you think of this, John?
I'm not on this bandwagon, but I know a lot of people are, and I'm not against this bandwagon at all. It's just I'm in the Canon world. But the GH series of Panasonic cameras have been a very interesting beast. They've been kind of the SLR revolution part 2. They sort of started after all the Canons early on, and they did similar things but took it up a notch. So if this rumor that we've got in front of us is true, where they might do 6K on what is a relatively inexpensive camera, possibly also higher frame rate stuff, then this could again be a pretty big game changer. Their GH4, very popular camera with a lot of indie filmmakers. So they've definitely got the market there, and they seem to be pushing the herd in terms of the Nikons and Canons and Sonys of the world. So if they can release something like this, that would be fantastic. Talking about H.265 in terms of acquisition.
To be honest, no.
Don't know about that.
No one's even got H.264
265 or 4?
No, 264 implemented properly in a camera.
Yep.
Prime use case. Put your bitrate right down in the camera. You look at an 18 megabit per second recording, and everyone's going, oh, it's going to look terrible. Well, you've turned it right down from 100 megabits. What are you doing? Okay, let's now encode something that's raw and uncompressed with something like media encoder, where you're using a dual Xeon 32 core machine with 32 gig of RAM to sit and crunch through this video with two GTX 980s in your machine. And it's still taking an hour to compress, half an hour worth of footage because you've got all your settings maxed out. Now, you look at the two, the one you compress on your PC is miles better than anything that comes out of a camera. And that's just because you've got more processing power and you're implementing all the features of H.264 properly at the highest level you can. You're checking all the options. You're doing all of the predictions and looking up, down, left, right, diagonal, and doing that 50 times over in every direction to get every possible combination of the best thing to do within the codec to give you the best quality image.
Yep.
Video cameras, they're trying to do this with low power usage, and you don't have the processing power of ridiculously fast graphics cards in your camera. You just don't have that. And you have specialist video compression chips, and they're very clever, but they also take a lot of shortcuts.
Yeah.
They need to speed those chips up and make them more efficient and even duplicate them. And
well, apart from anything else, I think the H.265 codec itself has been a bit underwhelming. Like Netflix, there was a talk by the head of compression at Netflix, who I forget his name, but he was basically saying in their tests, meh. Like, they thought eventually they'd be moving to it, but they weren't as impressed as they thought they would be. And using their compression methods, which are crazy over the moon, and you should go out and read about them because they're really interesting and impressive, involve all kinds of AI and people and computer logic. The H.265 for delivery, and what you're talking about, Chris, where you have the time to crunch with massive computers, and Netflix don't just crunch things once. They might have 50 versions of the same video that they've crunched at all different bit rates and resolutions and so on and so forth. And they were saying H.265 wasn't great in that scenario, let alone in the acquisition format.
I think they're probably right. They've done their research.
Yeah, they've got a little bit of source material.
Can't argue.
Yeah.
They need to figure out how to do their mathematics in camera in the 264 world before they worry about 265.
Yeah.
Finally, I guess the one other thing that we can expect is some announcements from Sony. They are talking about releasing a curved sensor as well, which...
Yeah, what? Why?
Maybe,
how?
Yeah, which is basically, where lenses traditionally expose onto a nice flat surface.
Yeah, so is this because lenses are curved, therefore sensors should be curved? Is that the thinking?
I don't know if it's going to change the way the lens would,
for Sony, it means you need to rebuy all your lenses, which is possibly good for them. But there
might just be a piece of glass that
so a lens that then makes everything that went from a curved lens into a flat plane back to a curve,
which took 200 years of engineering.
Curve for the curved sensor doesn't quite make sense. This is a rumor. I think it's a stupid one. Maybe we're missing something, Chris, but I can't see why this would make sense.
The argument is that there's more sensitivity, that you get 2 times more sensitivity in the corners and a little bit more in the middle. I don't know how.
I don't get that
on
either.
A curved sensor, it's really going to do it because the argument is I think it's a wide, like it wraps around the image a little bit more, but
that's only if the lens is completely redesigned.
And this is the kind of rumours that we're getting if you saw it through it all. So, what's good, what's not, who knows. The one thing that I can leave you on is that Isotope, a company who do audio plugins, have released Isotope RX for fixing up problems with audio.
So popular, these plugins, that even multi-millionaire musicians pirate them. Did you see that story? Yeah,
no,
I forget who it
know.
was. There was some famous musician or producer, and there was a behind-the-scenes video, and there was the cracked version of this particular
Isotope RX
plugin in the video. Oops.
I'm looking personally at getting a copy for my edit suite, and it's $99. And they're reduced versions of the plugins, but they are.
But what does it do?
Still technology. They de-click. Mm-hmm. So if you've got pops or clicks or things, or even you can it will reduce some of that. The de-hum, if you've run long cable somewhere or if something's happening, it removes the hum. There's a de-clip.
De-clip. That definitely clipped.
So that definitely clipped. It would not totally fix it, but would largely fix that problem. And there's a dialogue denoiser as well. So if you've got hiss, or if you've got air conditioners, or you've got all sorts of...
cheap audio recorder.
A cheap audio recorder that hisses terribly, like 2 weeks ago when we had the H4n and the SM58. And look, to be honest, there's a lot of times where someone off camera says something and your mic picks it up, and the client wants to use it, or you need to use the audio and you just haven't got your settings and a mic in the right place or gain, and you're just stuck with having to boost it in post. And it's just situational. It happens all the time to the best of us in every situation, especially documentary. So the dehisser on that, even if you're just playing around in the edit, just trying to figure out, can I save this? For $99, oh my God, just buy it. Isotope RX, like it's a no-brainer. So I think that was announced just before NAB. I'm really excited to be able to start using the plugins in my edit suites, as well as having the copy for the sound in the proper sound studio. So, yeah.
All right, Chris, we better wrap up because my watch is telling me that my NAS at home is failing horribly.
Your watch is telling you that your NAS is failing?
Yes, it is.
Did you get an email from your NAS?
About 6 alerts that failure.
Just for the listeners out there who are wondering what your hard drive is telling you from
my
home.
hard drive, what is it telling me? Detected increasing Penda sector count of failures, 301 of them on this internal disk drive number 2 of the Western Digital W blah, blah, blah. Yes, so my watch is telling me that drive 2 is unwell and needs medical attention. But before we finish up, Chris, we've got a couple of beers in front of us.
Yeah.
And this week we've got the Grand Ridge Golden Ale, which is $20 Australian for a 6-pack. Made in Mubu North. And I picked up this 6-pack because I hadn't tried this particular one. I've tried a couple of the other Golden Ale, Grand Ridge beers.
But that family-owned Grand Ridge pub where it's sort of
when I was a youngster, I used to play football at a football ground that was literally a stone's throw from the pub. Lots of good running water there. You'd go to the local milk bar, get your lollies and stuff before footy, grab a drink at the local river that passed past the back of the pub, and go play some football. So let's give it a go, Chris. See what you think.
Oh. Certainly crisp and fresh.
Yeah, look, I think this is a good one. It's a typical sort of golden ale. It's got that sort of light, bright flavour, a bit of passion fruit. Maybe a little bit over fermented, perhaps, but
it's pretty dry as well. Like it's not super lingering.
Not so sweet.
It really sits nicely on the palate.
Yeah,
and it's not high alcohol. It's a 4.3. But that's fine. That's probably what you want on a sunny day. And
a few quality control issues with the labels affixed to the bottle, but
you were just peeling that off, weren't you, John?
No,
you know what they say.
It's stuck that way. Seriously.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right. I'll take that.
Yeah, it looks like melted gold on the front to go with the golden ale, I suppose. But yeah, good old Mubu North, which is in South Gippsland, which is in Victoria, Australia.
And the home of where you used to play football.
Many years ago for the under-11 Cats. We won the premiership that year.
And it has a photo on front of it that you said looks like liquid gold. It's actually 1,000 times microscopic magnification of the crystallised golden ale. It has a microscope photo of itself on the front label. I like that.
It's like the super selfie.
That's a very good optical note to end on.
Excellent.
But seriously, guys, NAB, the National Association of Broadcasters, are having their show this weekend.
Yep, and we'll probably try and get back to you next week or very shortly after if we can with what has actually come out.
It's going to be a hoot. All I can say is keep your eye on the ground. And look, Black Magic have been very quiet, and that usually means something.
Yeah, it means that everyone's going to be putting in pre-orders, and then 6 months later, everyone's going to go, where is my pre-order?
Well, that's some news as well. The camera that they announced last year is now just about arrived in stock.
Yeah, it's reviewing very well. People are very happy with it, but it did take nearly a year to get here. So.
Which is fine. It's definitely always fun to hear what Black Magic have got to say. Their keynote is definitely going to be worth watching, I reckon.
Yeah.
But enjoy the show, and we'll see you next week with a NAB wrap-up on the Purple Fringe.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, John.